Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of College and Career Pathways, where every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 p.m., we provide you with information on various colleges and universities, financial aid resources, technical schools, training programs, skilled trade professions, employment opportunities, career exploration, and career readiness skills, all designed to help you make the best career decisions possible. I'm Tony Curtin, your host, and today we will be speaking with, and it's a long, complicated name, so I hope I get this right, the Elevators Construction Apprenticeship Program. Did I get it right, Ron?
Close enough, yeah. We're actually called National Elevator Industry Educational Program, but yeah, that's a lot easier to say, Tony.
Okay, good deal. Well, welcome and thank you for joining us. You can go ahead and get started with your presentation.
Thanks, Tony. Let me see if I can get this straight here. I'll share my screen and a PowerPoint if that works. Great. Is that showing up all right, Tony?
It is.
Good. So as Tony's pointed out, we are the elevator constructors. It's one of the building trades, very much like carpenters, electricians, plumbers, and so forth. We have in our industry approximately 25,000 members. Now that's national because we are international unions. So we encompass not only the United States, but also Canada. We are responsible for the construction, modernization, maintenance, and repair of these items here: elevators, escalators, moving walks, dumbwaiters, handicaps, lifts, any type of conveyance that's moving people. And you can see dumbwaiters not necessarily moving people, but it's still one of those pieces of equipment that we will install in buildings. Now, within our industry, some of the opportunities that present themselves to people don't stop at just being an elevator constructor. Within the elevator constructor name, if you will, you begin as an apprentice. And once you get through the apprenticeship program, you can become a journey person. And you can also kind of advance yourself to running job sites and become what they call a foreman. But as you see with this list, it's not just restricted to that. We can also move into sales, supervision. There's union positions, both locally and internationally. The education program, which now I work for as an area coordinator that represents all the apprentices in the state of Michigan. There are other jobs within our education program as well. There's consultants that work within the state, so they will be contracted by buildings to make sure that the elevator companies are doing what is required of them. And when they want to do installations or modernizations, consultants will help them, give them a little bit of guidance on the types of things that they need. There are inspectors that are employed by not only the state of Michigan, but also city of Detroit, even government inspectors that will come in and take a look at what elevator constructors have done on job sites. So many of those positions come from elevator constructors that have decided that they'd rather do that line of work rather than installing or maintaining the elevators. The engineering aspects, not so much, but there are elevator constructors who are smart enough that the companies recognize this and move them into an engineering position. But by and large, we're not engineers. We don't design this equipment. We simply install it, maintain it, repair it, modernize it. But that's not to say the education we've received, not only in the field, but in our apprenticeship program, doesn't line people up for an engineering part of this job. So in the state of Michigan, again, I'm the area coordinator for the state of Michigan, and I am responsible for all apprentices doing recruitments within this state. And within this state, there are two local unions. One is 36 in Detroit, and the other is Local 85 in Lansing. Now, I don't show the Upper Peninsula here, but you can see the line here, which is roughly along the lines of I-75, and that splits the jurisdictions of those two locals. Elevator constructors belong to one or the other of those. Sometimes they may travel across that line, but that's simply a courtesy phone call to the local to let them know that they're going to be there. But that's sort of how it's spread out here. Now, we are not a big local. We are not elevator construction, as you noticed at the beginning of this PowerPoint, only 25,000 in the country. With the carpenters, for instance, you may have 25,000 just in the local area here within the metropolitan Detroit area. So we are very, very small as compared to most of the other building trades. Within the state of Michigan, there are almost 300 elevator constructors in the local 36 Detroit jurisdiction. There's probably 250 in the local 85 Lansing jurisdiction. So that kind of gives you an idea of just how small our representation is. One thing that I'm sure everyone here is very interested in is the recruitment process. Again, I'm responsible for setting that process up and conducting it, and eventually coming up with a list that's used by those locals to supply manpower to the companies when they're ready for them. Now, typically how this happens, and by the way, we are a Department of Labor approved apprenticeship program. You have to have a national guidelines signed with them. An apprenticeship approved program has to have that sort of a document signed, and we have to operate within those guidelines. So everything we do is according to what the standards that we sign with the Department of Labor, and they will audit us periodically to make sure that we do follow those guidelines. Now, one of the guidelines, or part of the guidelines, are recruitment. And so some of these steps that you'll see here, and I'll take you through, are really pretty much given to us and approved by the Department of Labor. So one of the things we do is we talk to them about applications. Who is it that we're looking for? And we have in our standards that you must be 18 years of age or older and possess a high school diploma or a GED. Or if you're a military veteran, you can supply us with a DD-214. That pretty much tells us you've been through the high school scene. So that's pretty much all that's required of someone to make application. Now, we run our recruitments. We used to run them by bringing people down to the union hall. They'd stand in line and sign forms and so on and so forth. Now everything is converted to online. So through our website, and I will give you that at the end of this, well, you can see it actually a little further down the list here. I will give that, you'll see that in the PowerPoint at the very end, www.neep.org. NEEP is an acronym for National Elevator Industry Educational Program. So on our website is where you will find where there are upcoming recruitments, and then eventually where there are open recruitments that you can apply to. So for instance, if I were to run a recruitment for Detroit, you would see that advertised on our website as an upcoming recruitment 30 days in advance of me taking applications. So here's the time frame here. I have to advertise for at least 30 days before I can take applications. This again is a guideline by the Department of Labor. Once the application period closes, there will be 2 weeks that I can kind of gather all the information, make sure I contact people, and they all understand that they need to come in for an aptitude exam. This aptitude exam we get done depending on the number of candidates within a week's time. We can usually have that completed. We have a window of 1 week between the exam, minimum of 1 week, between the exam and the interview process. Now, the exam is really a gatekeeper to the interview. The interview is everything. If you pass the aptitude exam with 70% or better, you are invited to the interview. If you do not, you're welcome to come back and apply at a later date. But if you get an email from me saying, congratulations, you passed the aptitude exam, you will be invited to a date and a time specifically for you, where you will come in and interview with a couple of individuals from the local's education committee. They will ask the same questions to each and every candidate. Once again, That's very structured. We have to do that so we can't show bias towards one person or another. So it's a very scripted interview, and those questions are those that need to be followed to the T by the interview team. When the last interview is complete, and again, this depends on how long it takes to go through all of the interviews, we have a list developed immediately. That list is our recruit list, and it will be given to the union hall where they keep that on file. And when employers are looking to hire new hires, they will call down, and the person with the highest interview score will be sent to that company first. And then they will move down the list from there. So you'll notice that between when the list is developed and when employment begins, I have unknown below it. That's because we really don't have any direct knowledge of when employers will hire. They may tell us we're ready to hire some people and they'll be waiting for this list to develop, but we will have no way of knowing when those people will be referred out. So that's kind of one of the tough parts of this whole thing. It's really hard to tell. We can look at the work picture and maybe, kind of guess at the number of people that will go out, but there's never a firm commitment to that when the list has been developed. Let me just go back and kind of touch up on a couple of these things that happen here. The advertising period at the very onset here. Again, we will advertise that at our website. Michigan Works is another place that I will advertise with. Women in skilled trades, helmets to hard hats. I have probably close to 28 to 30 different organizations that I will advertise with. From time to time, we put it in newspapers, which really doesn't do very much for us. We've gone to online advertising sites. There's been a number of different places. But again, all of our advertising needs to be approved by the Department of Labor. If we come up short of what they expect, we will add those places to our list. Many of the schools in the state we will advertise with. I will certainly be reaching out to Miss Tony and letting her know when we do this. If they can post that and there's a way for you folks to see that, that would work out great. But again, keep in mind Michigan Works. That's probably one that most people are very familiar with. The applications, again, are made on our website. The aptitude test that we conduct, there is a $25 testing fee. That's one that we purchase this test from an organization, and we have to pay for that so that we pass that cost along. Now that aptitude exam, that entrance exam, it's comprised of 3 parts: reading comprehension, mechanical comprehension, and arithmetic computation. Now, a lot of people ask us, well, is that like this test or that test? And all I can say is, I don't know what those tests are like. I can tell you this: the reading comprehension is very simple. It's a paragraph, some story that they tell you, and they pull a word out of there and put 5 similar words off to the right. And you have to pick the correct word that fits in that blank. So that's kind of reading comprehension. The mechanical comprehension will give you a number of figures, 30, I think, in all. Figures like a teeter-totter or some object balanced on a fulcrum. And they'll tell you it's balanced and there's more weight on this side than on this side. What is that telling you about the weights? Or a number of gears that are intermeshed, and they'll tell you the one on the left turns clockwise. Which way does the one on the right turn? Those types of questions constitute our mechanical comprehension. The arithmetic computation, if you are able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide whole numbers, fractions, and decimals, you'll do quite well on this test. I can tell you the people that ask me what to study for this, I generally direct them to places like Barnes & Noble or a library that have just that, general aptitude test taking books. Those books will give you sample exams. And as long as you look for that book that covers these 3 areas, you should be able to get enough information from that to help you through this. Now, there's one other test that I will administer when you're in for the aptitude test, and it's called our tool assessment test. This is really broken down into 3 parts as well. We found that some applicants that would come through our program had no idea what tools are, simple hand tools. And the companies had a problem with that. So they had us add this tool assessment test in. So you'll have to show us recognition of tools. So imagine pictures of tools on the left and their proper names on the right. You have to match them up. The other part is tool application. So if I show you a picture of a tool, a number of tools, and tell you you're going to be doing this type of job assignment, which of those tools is the correct one to use for that? That's what this part of the test is about. The measurements is just that. They're looking for you to be able to read a ruler, because a lot of people who weren't able to read a ruler, that's something that we had to spend the time to actually teach them. A very, very basic thing that's needed in the building trades, being able to understand measurements, looking at a ruler and being able to discern how many feet and inches in fractions that you're reading. The interview takes approximately 1/2 hour, and the resume is a very, very important part of that. Ms. Cureton, I would suspect that your organization helps them with developing resumes.
Yes, we do.
Very good, because that is such an essential part of this. I can't stress that enough. When you build a resume, build it for elevator constructors. If you're interviewing for DTE, build it for them, and keep that in mind.
Mhm.
So the apprenticeship training, once you get through the recruitment process and you're fortunate enough to be hired, we have a 5-year mandatory apprenticeship program. You have to go through our program. You cannot come in and decide later, this really isn't for me, I just want to work. That's not allowed. You would be, according to the Department of Labor, violating our standards and subject to removal from the program. This program involves 8,000 hours over this 5 years of on-the-job training. So it's very easy to do if you do the math over 5 years, working 40 hours a week, which is pretty much a basic starting point for work. All of our apprentices will hit 8,000 hours by the time they are ready to test out of the program. That also involves 144 classroom hours per year. So we have our own apprenticeship school in Detroit. It's in Detroit, down by Old Tiger Stadium, or to the west side of downtown. It's right at the Union Hall. Their classrooms are there. That's where the instructors will come. That's where students will come one night a week for 4 hours. That's on your own time. So once you're hired, you're working for a particular elevator company. One night a week, you have to come down there for classroom training for 4 hours. And that's going to be, generally speaking, between 5 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the evening. Now, the curriculum, it's delivered through classroom training. Once again, we use individuals from the field who are the best of the best, so to speak. We take them and send them back to our home office, teach them how to train, how to instruct in the classroom. So they're the very best elevator constructors in the metro area, and they will deliver that classroom training with the curriculum that we give them and with labs that we give them. Now, in our classroom, we have 2 semesters per year. And I just found out the other day, we are going back to the classroom. We have been doing online training since COVID hit. So actually 2.5 semesters have been online training. And we've been very fortunate, because if you look just below this, it says all apprentices are issued a laptop. So we've done that over the last 5 years. And it was very fortunate that we did, because when we shut down classrooms because of COVID, students were able to continue on without a hiccup, getting their curriculum done, assignments done, tests administered and completed. We were able to do online mentoring, all of those things that were contributing to a successful year for these students. That laptop is a laptop that we issue and is given to the student to use during the 5 years. If that student decides to leave the program and go to work somewhere else out of the industry, we would take that laptop back. If the student stays in the industry and completes the apprenticeship training, the laptop is theirs to keep. As you see below here, we have a number of hands-on labs and virtual labs. Hands-on labs that are used in the classroom, virtual labs that can be delivered through their laptop. So there's, for instance, circuit tracing. That's a very big part of our curriculum, being able to do electrical work and work on electrical controllers and so forth. So we are able to deliver some of those virtual labs right through their laptop. You see down below here, it says free. Like many of the other programs, we can tell you it's free, but it's actually part of your wage package. There is no out-of-pocket expense for our apprenticeship training. And most of the building trades apprenticeship programs are done very similar to that. All right. And again, I'll be glad to ask or answer any other questions when we're done here. So people ask me to describe a typical workday for an apprentice. You are following the direction of a journeyman. You're being mentored during the day, always working with a journeyman. All right. Their workday could be, again, in construction, in modernization, repair, or maintenance. You could be working at one of the steel mills in some of the most hazardous conditions one day, and then working in gowns in a operating room on their surgical equipment lift the next day. So it's all over the spectrum there. By and large, new hires start in construction. So that's where you would more than likely begin as an apprentice. They asked me to describe union's occupation, education, background, and training. I could go on about this, as far as being in a union. Again, the education here is second to none. There are really only a few other different education programs for elevator constructors, and they don't even come close to what we have. Discuss parts of the jobs that apprentices like best and least. They love the money, I can tell you that. As far as least, I have a hard time with that because some of them will complain. In fact, here's a good least. Like, they talked about going to school, how they hated being down there for 4 hours after working all day in the cold. Now that we've worked or done virtual training for the last 2 semesters, the same people are saying, I wish we were back in the classroom, because they see the benefit in being with an instructor and being able to talk with other schoolmates and do that. So it's very hard to really find something bad about this. These people love this industry. In fact, most people that hire into our trade stay in our trade for their whole career. So that should tell you something there. The future outlook for our occupation, the growth, like many of the other building trades, it is doing very well right now. The COVID shut us down. I think all of them will tell you that. We lag the other trades when it comes to work. Typically speaking, when a job site starts, you've got all of the operating engineers, the iron workers, everybody's in there right away getting all of the structure going. We lag behind them because we need some of that structure built before we can start doing our work. So once COVID is starting to wind down, I'm hoping, we can see job sites starting to pick up, and we can see some employment starting to pick up for us. We had a lot of people laid off as of last year, March, and all of those people are pretty much hired back, and we are starting to hit the new hire list once again. Here's the salary range for apprentices. So you can see, as a probationary apprentice, you would start out at $27.73 an hour. This is Detroit. Lansing is a few cents more. First year apprentices. So if you successfully complete your first 2 semesters of our classroom, you will be then increased to $30. This is as of January 1st this year. January 1st of next year, these will increase. So the second year, third year, fourth year, this just means they're successfully completing a year worth of curriculum. The ultimate goal here is a journeyman's wages, right? So the journeyman wages in Detroit are making $55.46 an hour. The mechanic in charge, or that person that runs the job sites, he's making 12.5% over scale. Now understand, this is just wages. There's a benefits package. That benefits package includes medical, dental, and optical. Everybody here knows what the medical costs out there if you were to go and buy your own medical plan. It's incredibly expensive. We have not only our own defined pension program, run by our fund office, but also an annuity that is getting to be pretty substantial. In addition to that, they were smart enough to offer a 401k. So if you want to kind of make your pension and annuity look better at retirement, you can also throw money into 401k. And most people are, and it's a huge benefit to them when they're hitting retirement age. This package of all of this right here is an incredible amount of money. And that adds directly to this dollar amount for wages. We are the highest paid of the building trades, but we are because they expect us to come in with some education. They expect us to continue to educate ourselves. And they also expect us to be at work every morning and to work 8 hours. So discuss education and training needs. I think I've kind of covered that in the career paths. These are some of the things that I'm typically asked during job fairs. So I put these up just to kind of give you a little bit of a visual on some of the what people typically ask me when I venture out to these job fairs. As mentioned earlier, here are a couple of really important websites. Elevator Constructor website. This is our International Union website. So International Union of Elevator Constructors, IUEC. And as I've mentioned before, www.neat.org. This is National Elevator Industry Educational Program. Our website is where you would go again to look for upcoming recruitments and open recruitments where you can make an application. So, Tony, I think at that point, I would like to open it up. If you want me to have some time here for questions, I'd be glad to.
Sure, Ron. One of my first questions, how many women are in your industry? How many young girls, young women do you get?
Yeah, not many. This is a huge topic of discussion with us right now. We have an outside organization that has come to us, and we're sitting down with them right now discussing ways that we can increase these numbers, increase the numbers of minorities, because we are finding that at our recruitment process, not many apply. Mm-hmm. And when they do, not many make it through the aptitude test or the interview process. We're losing great numbers of them at that point. I have part of my job is to do outreach like I'm doing here. Right. So you'll notice that I talked about women in construction. There's an organization in Lansing called WIST, Women in Skilled Trades. Yeah. I will get in front of those folks in their classroom and explain the trade and try to give them an idea on how to apply, what to expect, what they would do in the industry. We still are having a hard time bringing women and bringing the minorities to the interview process. I'm sorry, I should back up, to the application process. Mm-hmm. I go to as many of these job fairs as I can around the metro area, around the state for that matter, and speak to people, tell them who we are, where to go, and I still can't get the numbers. So we are working on ways of trying to bring people in. In Detroit, to my knowledge right now, there are about 4 women. 1 is a mechanic, 3 are apprentices that are working among, as I pointed out earlier, almost 300 members. Mm-hmm. In Lansing, I believe there are 2 women that are there. Now, you can go to other locals, mm-hmm. San Francisco. Who was I talking to? I was yesterday in Kansas City, I was speaking with a gentleman from LA, their area coordinator, my counterpart. And they have several women there who actually have formed their own little group, and they kind of help each other in what's going on job sites, what types of things they need to do to be successful in the trade. That's the type of thing we are trying to promote. We'd like to bring those types of individuals. In fact, the one female mechanic in Detroit, I brought to one of the meetings, one of the job fairs, and had her speak with some of the women who were kind of looking at building trades, just to give an idea of what it was like to be an elevator constructor. Those are the types of things we are trying to do to bring more in. So I am looking for women. I am looking for minorities. We're trying to give them an idea of what types of skill sets they need to kind of come in with to make them look like a really good candidate and try to help them be successful.
Sure, sure. Second question, in your progression from first year apprentice all the way up through, what is the difference between journeyman and mechanic?
Journeyman and mechanic are one and the same. It's just a matter of terminology. Yeah, for years we've called them mechanics, but when the Department of Labor got involved and we became an apprenticeship program, that terminology of journeyman had to be included. So they are one and the same, yes.
Okay, okay. And so is your enrollment rolling, meaning whenever you all feel the need to
Yeah.
put recruiting out there, or is it set, like carpenters are like, I think it's sheet metal who's like June and maybe sometime in the fall.
Right. That's a great question. I should have covered that and I did not. So yeah, all the building trades seem to have a difference in how they recruit, even within our own trade, depending on cities. Some of the cities will mandate that you have to have a rolling recruitment, as you spoke of. In the rest of them, spelled out in our standards with the Department of Labor, it tells us how we do this. In our area, in the state of Michigan, it is on a 2-year cycle. Now, a 2-year cycle, so for instance, let me kind of go at it this way. Detroit ran a recruitment last year and completed it in about February. It was just before COVID shut things down. They completed a recruitment, got a list of over 300 names, right? Everything shut down. So before it did, we hired 8 people off that list right out of the gate. Boom. Everything shut down. Job sites went south. People were laid off. We've now gotten to a point where we started to hire almost all of everybody's back ready to work. So they're looking at the 2-year cycle being late next year, right? So we would be looking at later this year talking about running another recruitment for next year. But what happens is if we don't have enough demand for new apprentices, if the work picture is such where they're not going to exhaust the list that we have, the Department of Labor allows the local to ask for an extension.
Okay.
But we have to jump through some hoops there. They're not letting you do that. You get a list of 300, hire 5 people, and then run another recruitment. They don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. It's quite timely to go through that process.
Yeah.
So it's a 2-year cycle, but the caveat is there could be an extension. And doggone it, because of this COVID, I can see where it's forced us into something like that. But let me qualify this just a little bit, if I may. I tell everybody during these job fairs, don't let this discourage you, because this is an ideal time to position yourself so that when we do run a recruitment, you have all of the things that they're looking for in the interview process. Through the interview process, they're going to look at the resume and they're looking for somebody who has some credentials that will help them kind of hit the ground running, so to speak, or just a little bit help them. They look for people who have work history that has elements similar to ours. So for instance, we work with a lot of hand tools, power tools. We work in the elements, right? Outdoors, in bad environments, confined spaces, high places. Can't be afraid of heights. They also look for educational experience. So for instance, we do a lot of electrical work, a lot of mechanical work. They'll look for 2 items of educational experience that will be similar to what we do. And 2 pieces of maybe work history. So if you've, worked tree trimming and you were up in buckets, high places, that tells them you're not afraid of heights. If you've worked in Jiffy Lube, doing brake jobs on cars, that shows them that you were working with hand tools and have that aptitude to be able to take things apart and reassemble them. So they're looking for those things there in the interview. That's what I tell people, get some of that stuff. Have that on your resume. So when you come in and apply, you look like a rock star. That's the person they're looking for right there.
So then you are not really looking to recruit straight out of high school with their high school diploma?
Yes, we are. We are. I shouldn't say, I shouldn't have said it quite that way. We
Okay,
have done everything in our interview process to give credit to high school students where we can. So what we look at is students who have gone through high school. Maybe you've done shop or vocational classes. That shows us work experience or educational background. Um, if you've done some work with your father or mother rewiring a house, um, maybe you've, anything torn a car apart. But we've had people bring in brochures where they're showing pictures of automobiles that they've restored, and that goes towards some sort of work history for them.
okay,
So yeah, we do not want to discourage young people. The truth is, they are usually really good candidates for companies because they have the longevity ahead of them. They also are people that the company can kind of
mold.
train and turn
Yeah.
into, yeah, employee that they want. So yeah, we are not by any means trying to cut out high school graduates. No.
Good deal, good deal. I also wanted to know, so with regards to what elevator construction repair people do, is your position or your role in the construction of a building, are you always on the job site performing something? Like, for example, carpenters are always going to be on a construction site. Um, you may have millwrights on construction site. You're going to always have sheet metal people and iron workers. Are you always going to be a factor in a construction build like the rest of the skilled trades?
Yes, we are. Any building that's over 2 stories by code needs to have some sort of conveyance for people. So
Okay,
that tells you something there. If it's 2 stories, yeah, there might be a small hydraulic type elevator that just, doesn't take long to install, but there's an elevator nonetheless. Now,
mhm,
if you look at high rise buildings, for instance, where we've got a new Hudson site building going up, there is going to be a work for a lot of people for a long time. We are there pretty much as the steel is going up, doing some preparatory work for what happens when everything is in place. And yes, so construction, again, that's a big part of our industry, but let me say something about this. And I'm not throwing stones at iron workers, but I use them as an example because when a building is constructed, once the steel is up, where do the iron workers go? On to the next job,
okay,
right? So once the elevators are installed, what happens next? Yeah, they move on to the next job, but we have other elevator constructors who are there maintaining and repairing those elevators. And when that building gets older, we are doing modernization, tearing out the old and installing new. So during the bad times, we tend to have less unemployment because we have that element of our industry still working.
okay, okay. That's a very excellent point because once the building is complete, now any building maintenance that the the owner of that building or the occupants of that building take care of it. And as you say, construction move on, but you will never move on because they will never have people on site of any premise that will be able to repair and fix and maintain their elevators.
Exactly.
Good deal. That's awesome to know that you have that kind of security in this industry.
There is. That's another part of the industry that people just absolutely love because they interact with the public all the time. And when I was in the field, I made a lot of good friends in different buildings around the metro area that I've seen from time to time. And then it's like any other trade where you have the pride of looking back and saying, yeah, either I installed those elevators or I
Yeah.
repaired them or I maintained them. It's very rewarding.
So now, as an applying, I'm applying for the apprentice position. Do I have to come in with a company sponsor, or once I apply and pass the exam and secure the interview, will that sponsor or construction company be provided to me?
Yeah, it pretty much is, they're just out there. So you might think of elevator companies like Otis. I mean, they've been around forever, but there are four majors: Otis, Schindler, Kone, ThyssenKrupp. There are many independents in the area too. They're out there with a workforce. When they have new construction or more work than they can handle with the members that they have working for them, they'll look to us to supply them new apprentices, and they'll go to the union hall to actually get that recruitment list that we've developed during the recruitment process. And they will say, send us the next person on the list or the next 5 people, whatever they need.
Okay, good deal. Mary, do you have any questions for Ron?
No, I don't. It's been very informative. I have a student who says he's interested in elevator trades, and I didn't even know elevators had a trade. So it's been really great to learn about this, and I'm passing information along.
Yeah, I didn't know there were elevators, an elevator trade. It was a friend of the family that mentioned it to me. They were taking applications, and that's pretty much how we kind of get things around is word of mouth, that people know somebody. It always seems like it's part of a family. Well, now that we are part of an apprenticeship program, we have to advertise in different ways that are bringing more people in, it's making it a little more diverse, if you will. So yeah, it's a great trade, and I'm telling you, it's like a family. We all know each other. There may be 300, but everybody pretty much knows the other person in this trade, and doesn't matter what company you're working for. If somebody needs help or has questions at all, they can kind of rely on their fellow members to help them out.
Good deal. Well, Ron, I thank you so much for your time. Awesome presentation. Again, it opened up new avenues and pathways, career pathways. Speaking of which, one last question before I go. You start at 18 years of age, correct? Is there a cap to how old a student can be when they apply to be an apprentice?
18 years of age or older, yes, they must. I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood the question.
I know that you began at the age of 18, but do you stop at a certain age?
Oh gosh, no. That's one thing you'll find with the Department of Labor. You cannot discriminate against age. That's just one of the things we can't discriminate against during recruitments. So when it comes to hiring, I've had people that were in their 50s that have applied. We had Vietnam veterans that have applied as well. So
Wow.
we cannot discriminate against anyone in that regard, not at all, no.
Well, good deal. You may be receiving my application soon. No,
Glad to have it.
I'll be your woman token.
Right, very good.
Good deal. Well, thanks again, Ron. We appreciate your time. It was a great presentation. And I'm sure all of our students will get a lot of good information from this. Thanks so much, you guys, for joining us. And everyone have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye now.